Minister, restaurants are seemingly price gouging here. Is that appropriate?
Well, it will come to no surprise to you that my side of politics believes in the market forces, and it's always been a great engine for innovation. So as long as there's price transparency, it's entirely appropriate.
But $800, I mean, that's an extraordinary amount.
I've been going to New Year's Eve functions for 20 years, and always there's a spike in prices this time of year. But again, our side of politics doesn't really believe in market intervention unless it's a break glass issue, and I don't see this as a break glass issue.
Is this an opportunity for restaurants and other venues to try and make some money? We know, particularly in the Circular Quay area, it relies on tourism. The tourists simply aren't there. So is this an opportunity to make some money where possible?
Well, they've been struggling all year, as we know, and if they have a market position where they can charge a premium for an occasion that is once off every year, in circumstances where it's been really difficult for them, then they should be entitled to do it. Again, every year at about this time, the prices go up, and we all know that. But as long as there's market transparency, people can see and vote with their wallets, then we shouldn't intervene.
Some cafe owners in the area have questioned why crowds in the CBD are being controlled over New Year's when shopping malls are not. What's your response to that?
Well, Danica, all around the world, when you look at the pandemic, normally the hotspot comes out of a venue that is indoor and has alcohol served. Because when you combine indoor and alcohol, with alcohol, you let your guard down, and that's where the virus starts spreading and it becomes a hotspot. And that's why restaurants and other hospitality venues are part of that high-risk venue settings that we need to regulate in the market in this sense. And that's why we're working with the restaurants and the pubs and the clubs and the cafes and the small bars to try and help them out. We led an industry task force where we had an outdoor dining or an alfresco task force where we encourage diners to go outdoors because it's far, far safer to eat and dine outdoors than indoors.
But what's the difference between sitting at a cafe, though, and you're in a packed shopping mall where hundreds of people are cramming onto a lift?
Well, in a cafe, you're sitting down in one location, normally for an extended period of time, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, up to an hour. In a shopping mall, you're moving around. And obviously there's a lot more air volume in a shopping mall than in sometimes a small cafe. Again, it's just about the nature of the virus. If you're in a small, closed setting in one location for a long period of time, you've got a higher risk of catching a virus than in an outdoor space such as where I am now.
Let's move on, because as of January 1st, all businesses in the state must use the Service New South Wales QR code system. Now, your department is responsible for the rollout. How many customers have scanned using the Service New South Wales code?
Well, Danica, up to now, we've got over 2 million customers in New South Wales that have already used the Service New South Wales check-in system. And as you said, come 1 January, it will be mandatory for all hospitality venues and plus hairdressing salons, and we're going to look beyond that in the week after to see what other industries should be mandated as well. And it's really important that we get onto the Service New South Wales check-in system because it gets information to the contact tracers in much faster, far more accurately, it's more private and it's more secure.
And how will you know if a business has not signed up to the Service New South Wales QR code? Will your department be alerted, or does it rely on tip-offs from the public?
We will rely on tip-offs from the public. That will always be a successful point. But equally, we will know in the sense that if an inspector goes down the road, walks down the street, and there's a cafe, they'll quickly be able to say, well, this cafe is not registered. And yet you're a hospitality venue, and on the spot fine of up to $5,000.
We saw people checking into venues recently with fake names like Donald Duck, for example. Will this prevent that?
Yeah, absolutely. This will significantly reduce that risk because there's a validation process in getting this check-in service. So once you download the app, there's a validation process involved. And that's important for contact tracers, because if you've gone to a hotspot, they need to be able to text you and say, look, this is a hotspot area for the protection of yourself, your family, your community, indeed our state and country. Please go and get checked. And if you've got that notification on your phone and there's a bell ringing off saying, please go and get checked, 9 times out of 10, people will do the right thing and go and get checked.
And just finally, what has compliance been like since the QR code system was rolled out in New South Wales? Are you finding that the majority of businesses have been complying?
Look, I'm really pleased. I go around to a number of shops and venues, and there's been a mass adoption. McDonald's, I took my nephew and niece to McDonald's yesterday, and they had it. I think they're rolling it out. Woolworths are rolling out. Coles are rolling it out. Bunnings, Officeworks, and these aren't even compulsory venues. When I went to a cafe yesterday, and again, they had it in place, whereas the week before they didn't. So I'm expecting all the venues that have been mandated to come on board, because if they don't, we will issue a fine. There's no ifs, no buts, no maybes. This is about public health and about the health of the economy. They must have the check-in system. And can I quickly add, it's not good enough simply just to have the code and then go to sleep. You must make sure that before somebody sits down, i.e. before they enter your venue, you've seen the green tick. Because if you simply have the code up there and then pretend that's all you've done, that's not good enough. You've got to make sure that you see the green tick before you let them into the venue.
Victor Dominello, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
You're most welcome.